Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Taking a look at this Texas 2023 spring game. Just finished watching, had to watch it on the reruns, but kind of wanted to talk about some of the players that I thought were popping out and then just some of the storylines for this Texas team heading into that 2023 season. Now, before we get into it again, I really do just want to say thank you to you guys. The support you guys have shown, whether it's spring games, whether it's recruiting, has been absolutely awesome. Can't thank you guys enough for all the support. It means a ton. Almost at 5,000 subscribers. So again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We really do appreciate all the support. And then Texas fans, let me know in the comment section what players I have to add to the note sheets. Again, I kind of take for each of these Power 5 teams, I try to get a feel for where we are with the personnel, what players to watch as we head into 2023. And you guys help a lot doing that. So let me know in the comment section some players I should be adding to the notebook. Now, let's get to what we saw in the spring game. One, phenomenal environment. The fans showed out. It was a beautiful day. Let's talk about the quarterback battle, I should say. I mean, Coach Sark seemingly put an end to that discussion. Quinn Ewers will be, or at least is right now, the starting quarterback heading into 2023. And when you watch the spring game, you kind of got that feel. Now, I will say, Arch Manning is a young kid who's very talented. Malik Murphy, shout out Malik Murphy. He can absolutely rip it. And he's a guy that, I mean, if you're not really in tune with this Texas football program, you're only talking about Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. Malik Murphy can play some football. And so I'm interested to see how he develops within this program. But Quinn Ewers, the biggest storyline with Quinn is, can he get back to that chemistry and just kind of on the same page with some of these wide receivers, especially Xavier Worthy? He was there before the injury against Alabama. And then when he comes back, it just, the timing, the chemistry just never seemed to be there. And for Quinn Ewers, it's not about the arm talent. It's not about his ability to be accurate with the football and make the throws. He can certainly do that. We know what he was coming out of high school. I think a lot more had to do with just being on the same page with Xavier Worthy. It looks better. Like that second drive when he hits Xavier Worthy on the deep ball, that's what you need for this Texas team. That you look at the potential with Quinn Ewers and Xavier Worthy as that quarterback one, wide receiver one battery. That is just so important at the college football level. You look at some of those special Alabama teams with those quarterbacks and wide receiver duos, or Ohio State. That's so important at the college football level. And Quinn Ewers and Xavier Worthy have the potential to be one of those special quarterback wide receiver batteries. Now, I do want to talk a little bit more about just how many playmakers this Texas team has on the offensive side of the ball. You lose a guy like Bijan Robinson, Roschon Johnson, that hurts. The playmakers, though, I love how well-rounded the wide receiver room is for Texas. You almost view it as like a basketball team, right? You have some of your speedsters, you have some of your big guys, you have the guy who can work the middle of the field. Xavier Worthy, he'll be your speedster, the guy who's working down the field vertically, kind of taking the top off the defense, although he's much more than that, but that is where his skill set excels, right? Tracking the football, using that speed. Jordan Whittington, not enough people are talking about him. Everyone wants to talk about Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell. Jordan Whittington is one of the better slot receivers in the country. He's tough as nails. He's built like a running back. He's very good after the catch. You saw a little bit of that at the spring game. I think he's going to be a massive part of this offense in terms of working that short intermediate range, right? You have Xavier Worthy who's working down the field. The safeties have to respect the speed. Jordan Whittington and JT Sanders are guys who I think can work the middle of the field extremely well. And then A.D. Mitchell kind of going to be playing the role that I think a lot of Texas fans were excited for Isaiah Naylor to play last year. A.D. Mitchell, though, you don't find many guys who are 6'4", 200 pounds that run and move the way Adonai Mitchell does coming over from Georgia. And then you will have Isaiah Naylor coming back. I mean, Sark talked about this during the post-game presser. It's going to be really hard for defenses to deal with all the playmaking that is on the field on the offensive side of the ball for Texas, right? One of these guys is going to be matched up on a safety and is going to have a bad matchup, and these guys are going to be able to win, right? And then JT Sanders, we kind of mentioned him. Arguably the best tight end outside of Brock Bowers coming back in college football. Not enough people are talking about Jatavion Sanders as well. And then the running back room is just, it's going to be a committee, right? Last year it was the farthest from a committee. Bijan Robinson was the workhorse. He's the best running back in the country. Really interested to see who emerges at this running back position. You saw a lot of different guys get touches. Cedric Baxter, the true freshman, we've been saying this. He looks the part as a guy that's going to immediately I think he could be the most special running back. Now, as a true freshman, is he going to be the bell cow? We'll see. Jonathan Brooks, you feel good about. Jaden Blue, I mean, special in space. Like he's putting people on skates. And then you have a guy like Savion Red who's transitioning from wide receiver to running back. I think the pass protection needs to come a little bit along for Savion Red, but he's another guy that's just a weapon. And so this running back room, yes, it's really hard to argue that it's as talented as it was last year with guys like Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson, who are going to be NFL players in a couple weeks. But there's a lot of guys who you feel good about potentially stepping up and kind of being that guy in the running back room. My eyes are definitely on CJ Baxter, the true freshman, but we will see. And I like the situation where it doesn't have to be CJ Baxter if he's not ready as a true freshman, because you got a ton of different guys that you can give the ball to out of the backfield that can really make some noise. And then the offensive line, this is about as good as an offensive line as you've seen for Texas. And the biggest thing that was so fun to talk about Texas last year is, although the offense just was so choppy at times, the physicality of this Texas team is as good as we've seen in a decade. And that was the biggest flaw for this Texas team for so long, is just on both sides of the ball, just not very physical. That has changed. They've done a phenomenal job recruiting and kind of in the strength and conditioning room. This team looks different, right? You have arguably one of the best left tackles in the country in Kelvin Banks, and then a really well-rounded offensive line with a lot of young guys who you feel good about. Sark said this too. The depth is there. Like you didn't really see any one of the two deep players being like, hey, we're not comfortable with him starting. He said it himself. I would agree with it. And when I say the spring game just looked clean, it looked clean. It was good on good for most of that game. And so you feel good about not only the first team, you felt good about the first team last year. The depth might not have been there for Texas last year. This team is a lot deeper. And I think a lot of that has to do with the recruiting classes in the 2022 and 2023 class and how they've addressed the transfer portal. Like, this team is very well-rounded. It's a healthy team. You're very excited if you're a Texas fan, especially on the offensive side of the ball and what you're seeing. Now, moving over to the defense, you lose two of the guys that, I mean, if you guys follow our NFL draft content, you won't find anyone higher on Moro Ojomo and Keandre Coburn than me, especially Moro Ojomo. I think those guys are going to be missed dearly, but the defensive line still looks really, really solid. Like Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweatin, you want a replacement for a guy like Keandre Coburn. So I got to get his name again. Man, he is Sadir Mitchell from the 2023 class. Yeah, I mean, he's another just massive, massive body, fire hydrant-like body in the middle. And again, when you're 6'5", 340, like, you're going to be able to play early as a true freshman because those guys are rare. And so the defensive line from a physicality standpoint is still there. And there are some guys. I think Barron Sorrell is a guy to really keep your eye on in terms of, like, potentially like an all Big 12 defensive player of the year. Like, he's special off the edge. Now, outside of that, this linebacker room, and we talk about this a lot. If you have a good defensive line, those linebackers are able to cook. Like, they're playing clean. They're able to make some plays. Jalen Ford, probably one of the best linebackers coming back in all of football. But Anthony Hill Jr., like, you talk about, like, we talk CJ Baxter being a true freshman who can play. I probably should have mentioned Jonte Cook, too, at the wide receiver position, because I expect him to play some meaningful snaps for Texas as well on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, Jalen Ford and Anthony Hill Jr. might be the best linebacker duo in the Big 12. Now, again, Anthony Hill's a true freshman that probably should be holding my tongue a little bit on that. We know what Jalen Ford can do. Jalen Ford's a stud. But Anthony Hill, I mean, a former five-star guy coming in early, he looked the part. He was flying, or he did not look out of place. I mean, this is a dude who probably should be going to his senior prom. He looked like he's been playing college football for years. So I would not be surprised if you see Jalen Ford and Anthony Hill being kind of just some freak linebackers. Kind of, and it's nice because you lose a guy like the Marvin Overshown who's been there for so long for Texas. He was a guy that every single year I had him on my draft board, and every single year just a little underwhelming. Put together a really good 2022 season to his credit, but Jalen Ford and Anthony Hill could be a very good linebacker group. And then looking at the secondary, this is where I'm most excited for. I mean, you want to see some more turnovers. I like this secondary group, right? Ryan Watts, the transfer from Ohio State, very, very talented. Terrence Brooks, a young cat who I'm excited for. Gavin Holmes, the transfer from Wake Forest, I expect him to play a lot. He's a guy that, I mean, as I graduated from Wake Forest, I watched a lot of Wake Forest football. That one hurt, but he was just too good to be playing at Wake Forest. He transfers to Texas. he's a guy that I wouldn't be surprised if it is playing significant snaps for this Texas team. And then Jalen Catalon, you won't find him a much more experienced safety. And he's like another guy that on my draft board 2 years ago was kind of a top 50 guy coming into the season, just hasn't stayed healthy the last couple of years. He's another very, very good player who can come up in the box, play very tough in the run game. This defense, and this is, again, getting back to what you expect from Texas, and we'll take a little bit deeper of a dive into this program, into this roster in the summer, in our summer scouting. This is a complete team, and we haven't done many spring game recaps where you're like, oh, Texas needs to add or this team doesn't need to add anyone in the transfer portal. I wouldn't be surprised if Texas goes out and lands a guy in the transfer portal, but there's not a position where I'm looking at for this team and like that needs to be addressed before August of 2023. Like, this team is very complete and it's very deep. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if like Bear Alexander hits the portal. He's from Texas. Like, you take a look at him, but this is not a team that's pigeonholed themselves into a spot where they need to go get a transfer. This is about as complete of a depth chart as you've seen from Texas in a very long time. And the star power is there too. And when you combine star power and when you combine depth, that's when teams get really special. And this Texas team has all the pieces in place to be the best team in the Big 12. Now they just got to put it together in August. And another thing to note, especially with the quarterback room, is we talked about this with Michigan and J.J. McCarthy. Last year at this time, it was a quarterback battle between Quinn Ewers and Hudson Card. Quinn Ewers wasn't the quarterback one. He wasn't getting all the reps with the wide receiver ones. This year, it seems like that's kind of where we're at. Yeah, sure, you give Arch Manning and maybe some reps there, but this is Quinn Ewers' team. And so him taking 80 to 90% of those quarterback one reps or whatever that number might be, it's going to be higher than it was last year. You're really excited to see that chemistry being built with the wide receivers, because that's what it seemed like was off with this offense last year. Quinn Ewers coming back from the injury, just not on the same page with a lot of these wide receivers. Some missed throws, but it's not an accuracy thing with Quinn Ewers, because this dude is as talented throwing the ball as anybody in the country. It's just more of getting him a feel for his offense, going through the proper reads, and hitting players where they need to be hit. And that's what you're most excited for in this offseason. Is Quinn Ewers taking all those reps with the wide receiver ones and then heading into August, hitting the ground running. This team could be very fun to watch. We'll be talking plenty of Texas football in the summer. It should be heating up for recruiting as well for the Longhorns, because they haven't been talked about much in this 2024 class. The last 2 years, there hasn't been a hotter team on the recruiting trail than the Texas Longhorns. So again, appreciate you guys checking us out. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, can't thank you guys enough for all the support you guys have shown. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think. Teach me a little bit about some of these players I might be sleeping on. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.